Good evening. This is NBC News Election Central. For several million of us Americans, this is a most extraordinary election. By circumstances which must be obvious, I hereby speak for all those Americans who have adjusted to the immutable fact that come what may tonight, we shall be older than the President of the United States. And for any who might have harbored the so-called father image of the President, the switch to the young brother image may be a shocker. But we suggest you settle down now. Perhaps a pencil and a pad of paper you'll find helpful. You may choose to do a little dial twisting to see how our competitors are doing, but we hope and trust you'll be back.
Early this morning, after most people except maybe night watchmen and cab drivers had gone to bed, the campaign ended with Kennedy in Massachusetts and Nixon in Chicago. Both of them finally got to bed, though perchance not to sleep. It's been one of the most arduous campaigns we have ever had, and Vice President Nixon, when he ended it, was gray with fatigue as he climbed off another airplane at another town to make another speech. He said to a reporter standing there he hoped sometime he would write a book about running for president, and he said the title of it should be The Exquisite Agony. Well, the exquisite agony of campaigning is over, and now for the candidates and all of the people working for them and committed to them, now begins the exquisite agony of waiting to see how it all turned out. We're here to pass along the figures that will tell them how. Suppose we begin now by going down to our eastern section and Sander Van Oker. Sandy?
David, the most important race down here, of course, is the Connecticut race. We assumed that Connecticut would be in first. It was in first, and already the NBC Victory Desk, on the basis of more than 10%, it's two-thirds of the votes in, has awarded the state to Kennedy. It did that, as you remember, about a half an hour ago. In addition, we're told the Hartford Courant, which is the leading newspaper in the state, has awarded the state to Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Sandy. We're back here once again on the deck of NBC News Election Central, and suppose we direct your attention now to the National Recap Board. First to the national popular vote as it now stands. It's still very close. Kennedy slightly ahead with about 3% of the national vote now counted. To the electoral vote, the one that counts, there you can see the results. Kennedy has won, definitely, 8 electoral votes.
Chet, I've come across a survey made by a newspaper of all the candidates for Congress in its state, and it confirmed what has been apparent to us in Washington for a long time, and it is that we're developing a new breed of politician in this country, possibly by some Darwinian process, but in any case, they're all coming to look alike. And it found that of all the candidates in that state, all were in their early 40s. All of them had military experience. All of them had they had an average of 2.7 children. All lived in the suburbs. All had been to college. They were all lawyers, all earnest and sincere, and none of them had any new ideas. That was the result of the survey in the paper.
Time now, David, for another national summary. The vote has now reached roughly 14 million, which would be about 21% of the national total. In the Electoral College vote, the all-important one, Nixon has won 34 electoral votes. Kennedy has won 46. Nixon leading in states with 136. Kennedy leading in states with 244. On this basis, then, Kennedy would come up with 290. Nixon would end up with 170, which would put Senator Kennedy over. 35% of the total national vote is now in, so let's take a look at the recap boards. Popular vote first. Nixon, 11.5 million. Kennedy, virtually 13 million. The electoral vote, the all-important column. Nixon has picked up 75 electoral votes, Kennedy 148. Nixon is leading in states with 95, Kennedy leading in states with 199. If things continue in this direction, Kennedy will come out tomorrow morning with 347 total electoral votes, Nixon with 170.
Senator Kennedy and his family are tonight at the Hyannis Port, which is the Kennedy summer manse. Well, the summer is gone, they're there, getting the election returns. Ray Schurer is there with him. So let's go to Hyannis Port now and see what's happening there. To Ray Schurer with the Kennedy Party in Hyannis Port, Massachusetts.
Sitting here at Kennedy News Headquarters in Hyannis is a kind of gathering elation. Pierre Salinger, news secretary for the senator, puts it this way: the returns continue to be very encouraging from almost all over. Earlier, we had word that the senator had labeled the big Democratic sweep in Connecticut as fantastic. His sister, Mrs. Sergeant Shriver, had described him as jumping with joy. What supports all this joy are the various reports from bellwether districts across the nation which are being phoned into the Kennedy command post in Brother Robert's house next to the senator. One precinct after another is coming in strongly for Kennedy. Districts that Mr. Stevenson either carried narrowly in 1956 or that Mr. Eisenhower had won. It is too early here to claim anything, but the time is not far off when one of the senator's various political strategists will be coming here to make all this optimism a little bit more tangible. Ray Schurer, NBC News, with the Kennedy campaign in Hyannis.
Well, gentlemen, I think that NBC and RCA can report a truly amazing electronic coup. Now, by that, I mean this. At 8:24 this evening, Eastern Time, of course, the RCA 501 computer, reported by NBC, made its first projection of what the popular vote would be when all of it was counted. The computer estimated at that time that Nixon would lose the election with 48.9% of the popular vote. Senator Kennedy would win with 51.1%. Well, now we are at about 11:20 Eastern Standard Time, and the computer shows that the projected popular vote is precisely what it projected or estimated 3 hours ago: 48.9 for the Republican, 51.1% for the Democrat, and a Kennedy victory. Gentlemen, let me tell you this: if they ever teach this machine to talk, you and I, well, we're out of business. This is Richard Harkness with the RCA 501 computer.
In 1964, we may have two machines at this desk, kicking each other under the desk. We have now about 60% of the vote, and again, this is remarkably fast to have that many this early at 12:30 New York time. Nixon, 18,599,000. Kennedy, 20,191,000. Our tote board now shows Kennedy ahead still, as he has been, but by 1 million out of 51 million votes cast. We've heard a great deal. We've heard many forecasts of close elections, when in fact we have had very few close elections. I think 3 in the history of the country. The last one in 48, Truman. The odds, it figures. I didn't know electronic computers figured odds. Did you?
No,
I've never heard that before.
No, that was new to me tonight.
We may be able to find some other kind of work for the 501 when the election is over. At any rate, it figures now the odds are 333 to 1, which is as high as it can go, that Kennedy will win. It says there are only 5 doubtful states now: Nevada, New Mexico, Washington, Illinois, and Minnesota. And we already knew that.
As I look at the board here, while there are still some results still to come in, if the present trend continues, if Mr. Kennedy, Senator Kennedy, will be the next president of the United States.
I don't know whether that was a concession or not. Do you?
I suppose it was a concession, but I never heard one just like it before. What he said, well, everyone heard what he said. If the trends continue, Kennedy is the next president. It was the time for a concession or something, and I assume that was it. But you can choose your own name for it.
Where does the thing stand now? What do you expect him to do next?
Well, we're going to wait to hear further word from Vice President Nixon. And as we announced a little while ago, Senator will make a statement when he hears further from the Vice President, but no earlier than 10 o'clock in the morning, Eastern Standard Time.
Well, suppose he has heard nothing from Mr. Nixon by 10 o'clock, which is, 7 o'clock on the coast. Suppose Mr. Nixon's still in bed.
Well, all we've said is that the earliest he'll make the statement is 10 o'clock, and we'll be, if it's later, it'll be later.
And you'll just wait. To clear up one point that's become not an enigma, but it's somewhat puzzling. If Mr. Nixon had made a full-fledged 14-carat concession statement, would the senator then have come here and made a victory statement?
Well, I think that would have been likely, yes.
But inasmuch as he didn't, he thought it was best to...
Well, I don't think that the Vice President's statement was a concession, and so the senator felt that the best thing for him to do was get a...
There was too much of an if in it for you.
Yes.
Do you think you have won this election?
I think we'll let the senator make the statement.
This press secretary isn't going to make it until he makes it.
That's correct.
Thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
Right, thank you.
Get some sleep.
Good morning. For a few people, good morning, I say, for a few people who are astounded by what's going on in 8H as you are. My name's Garway. His name's Blair. His name's Scully, and we do a show called Today, which usually begins at this time, but we've been watching Chet and David, and we would no more think of taking over from them than we would of draining the Mississippi River dry this morning. Gentlemen, after 12 hours coming up, I just want to take time to, from the bottom of my feet, congratulate you on the most exciting and accurate television job I have ever seen.
Thank you very much. But if you've been watching us all night, how come you look so fresh?
How do you look so fresh? It's easy to watch.
Have you really been up all night watching this? Sure. Why not?
On your own time?
Will you go ahead and just continue as you are, and we'll sit back, and today will come along.
Can we try to fill you in on what has happened here in those days?
Sure.
Well, it started out like a house afire last night. The East going very well for Kennedy. The South, surprisingly, gave Kennedy a lot of strength. Then we got to the Midwest. Some races were close. He did very well in Chicago, piled up a tremendous lead. He started to take Michigan. Those were his two best races. He took Missouri. Then it went along and things slowed down, and finally it just ground to a screeching halt. Now in Illinois, we've been watching that all night. That tremendous lead he piled up in Chicago is being whittled down in the southern part of the state. He's still stubbornly holding on to a 34,000 vote lead at this moment with 90% of the votes in. California stopped counting its ballots. Everybody went home and went to bed. We're just beginning to get a few more returns there. I think that also happened in New Mexico, a couple of other crucial states out there. So we're hoping that they'll start counting ballots again pretty soon, Alameda County, Los Angeles, and so on. We'll get this thing resolved.
So it's not fair to say it's decided in any sense?
No, it's not officially decided at all. However, Senator Kennedy certainly, as our computer, our RCA 501 computer says, there's about a 300-to-1 chance in favor of Senator Kennedy.
You hear that, Jack?
Yes, I'm the odds man here.
Carry on, gentlemen. They now show Nixon to have 29,251,000. Kennedy, 30,019,000. Very close still.
A new figure has appeared on the California board. This could be critical. A little over 60% of the vote is now in. Apparently they're counting ballots now and reporting the new figures. And Kennedy is up to his biggest lead that he's had all night since we started to get figures from California, a lead of about 109,000 votes. He's very gradually and very, very slowly pulling away in the state of California. And of course, as David has explained, on the basis of our best judgment, he just needs 5 more electoral votes to go over the top.
Well, the South was the first area to be completely locked up last night. Nixon did not make the inroads in the South that President Eisenhower did 4 years ago. Religion was not the factor in the South as some thought it might be. It went like this. West Virginia went Democratic, changing over from Republican. Kentucky went Republican again. Tennessee went Republican again. Arkansas remained Democratic. Texas switched from Republican back to Democratic. Louisiana switched from Republican back to Democratic. Mississippi provided a question mark that still might prove of considerable importance, elect
elected 8 unpledged electors. Alabama remained Democratic. Florida remained Republican. Georgia remained Democratic. South Carolina went Democratic. They had felt sure it would go Republican. North Carolina, considered doubtful, went Democratic. Virginia, considered Republican, proved to be Republican. As it stood when the final tally was made, Kennedy had a victor's grip on 95 electoral votes in the South. Nixon 43, 8 unpledged. The Midwest, John Chancellor.
The Middle West this morning is a story of some Nixon victories and 2 of the closest presidential contests we've seen unfold in many years. Let's have a look at the board. In Ohio, the failure of the Democratic organization in the cities, plus a large, enthusiastic Republican farm vote, gave the state to Nixon. In Michigan, taken by Kennedy despite a lower than expected city Democratic vote. Indiana, a big rural vote, put Nixon in, as you can see. In Illinois, still unfinished. Kennedy ahead 34,000, 850 precincts in Illinois still out, 400 of them in Cook County, a half in Chicago and 1/2 in the suburbs. Very interesting fact that Frank Jordan and our counters in Chicago have been up all night and are still up. The election as it stands now, really over. The only thing we're waiting for is Senator Kennedy. Now, this morning at about 11:05 a.m. Eastern Time, the president-elect, and this is a pool story we have from Hyannis, and pool reporters always write everything down in fear that their colleagues will trip them up, wearing a gray suit and a red tie, called on his father, Joseph, in his father's house at Hyannis Port. Joseph Kennedy had a photographer, as he walked across the line, took Kennedy's picture. Kennedy advised him to wait, said, "You'll get all the pictures you want later." It is that later that concerns us now. We're just simply not sure when the Secret Service will arrange, as it must, Senator Kennedy's appearance in the armory at Hyannis. We now, for the first time, have a V, as we say, in front of John Fitzgerald Kennedy's name on the election board here. 32,275,184. We have been advised from the control room, and they're in contact with people in Hyannis Port, that we're waiting for Mrs. Kennedy, Jacqueline Kennedy, to come out of the house, to be picked up by the president-elect, to be put into a motorcade and taken from that house at Hyannis Port, which is now quite a famous structure in the United States, that has taken Cape Cod, an already busy tourist place, and made it something else again. A 5-minute drive, and there are troopers lining the route, about a 5-minute drive from the house to the armory, and that's what we're waiting for now. Now, I think possibly it might do us some good to have a look at Hyannis Port, to see what we will see when the next president of the United States comes out and appears on television for really the first time as the next president. Perhaps we could switch now to Hyannis Port and have a look at what we may see. The motorcade that will take President-elect, there it goes. There are the photographers in the car. There are some of the reporters, policemen, Secret Service men.
There's the white Lincoln right there.
There's the white Lincoln, just behind the tree. There he is. There he is, the next president of the United States. He always sits in the front seat, and incidentally, so does Mr. Khrushchev. These people find that you can wave more easily from that point. That's Pierre Salinger in the car that just went by, the press secretary who has dogged Mr. Kennedy for this entire campaign. All closed cars, modest. They might be on their way to the supermarket, really, in that town.
It's quite a shopping spree.
It's quite a shopping spree. They've been shopping for all these days. And that, I believe, in the background there, that little strip of water you see, is Nantucket Sound. And now we're going to our reporter on the scene in Hyannis Port, Massachusetts.
Here's President-elect Kennedy now, coming up to the armory. Senator Kennedy sitting in the front seat, being helped out by Secret Service.
senator waiting until there's his wife, Jackie Kennedy. The president-elect is shaking hands with the crowd. Photographers yelling from the roof to get a picture. Senator Kennedy, his wife, and mother go into the armory for his victory speech.
Here inside the armory, the once very junior senator from Massachusetts, now at the age of 43, the president-elect of the United States, and his wife Jacqueline go strolling down the aisle, heading for the rostrum while he receives one of the rarest of tributes, a standing ovation from newsmen. A very, very unusual thing indeed. It should be noted, too, that there are local enthusiasts from Hyannis who have somehow made their way into this armory, and they are contributing mightily to the applause. Kennedy, with his typical amazing physical ability to bounce back, looks rested. His eyes are a trifle bloodshot, but aside from that, you'd never guess that he's been through a grueling campaign and had been up most of the night following the election returns. We believe we're going to get a brief formal statement and then possibly answers to questions. The President-elect of the United States.
She's all right. She's all right, right here. Ladies and gentlemen,
I will ask.
ladies and gentlemen, I've received the following wire from Vice President Nixon. In that wire, he says, Senator John F. Kennedy, Hyannis Port, Massachusetts. I want to repeat through this wire the congratulations and best wishes I extended to you on television last night. I know that you will have the united support of all Americans as you lead the nation in the cause of peace and freedom during the next 4 years. In reply to the Vice President, I sent him the following wire. Vice President Nixon, Los Angeles, California. Your sincere good wishes are gratefully accepted. You are to be congratulated on a fine race. I know that the nation can continue to count on your unswerving loyalty in whatever effort you undertake, and that you and I can maintain our long-standing cordial relations in the years ahead. Sincerely, John Kennedy. I received also a wire from President Eisenhower, which says, my congratulations to you for the victory you have just won at the polls. I will be sending you promptly a more comprehensive telegram suggesting certain measures that may commend themselves to you as you prepare to take over next January the responsibilities of the presidency, signed Dwight D. Eisenhower. And I have sent to President Eisenhower the following wire. I am grateful for your wire and good wishes. I look forward to working with you in the near future. The whole country is hopeful that your long experience in the service of your country can be drawn upon further in the years to come. With every good wish, signed, John Kennedy. Wait, Jackie, I guess we have one more statement.
And I can assure you that every degree of mind and spirit that I possess will be devoted to the long-range interest of the United States. and to the cause of freedom around the world. So now my wife and I prepare for a new administration and for a new baby. Thank you.